I want you to think about something. Think about a time you were talking with someone, they were saying all the right things, everything sounded perfect, but you just had this feeling in your gut, right? That something was off.
Maybe they told you, "Oh yeah, I'm totally fine," but you could just hear that little crack of sadness in their voice. Or maybe they were smiling right at you, but their eyes were telling a completely different story. A story that said, "No, nothing is okay at all." Well, what if I told you that feeling, that intuition, it's not just a random hunch? Because what feels like a superpower is actually a skill. Seriously, the ability to read people, it isn't some kind of magic trick that's just for spies and TV detectives. It's a science. It's a practical skill that you can actually learn and get better at using some really powerful, proven tools from psychology. And trust me, when you start to get the hang of these techniques, the world around you is going to start making a whole lot more sense.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics. Why this is a skill, not magic. Then we'll get into the fun stuff. Decoding the silent language of the body, uncovering the secrets hidden in someone's face and even in their voice. After that, we'll dive into some really powerful conversation techniques you can start using right away. And finally, we'll talk about the real reason for all this, which is genuine human understanding.
Okay, first things first, let's just be crystal clear. When we say mind reading, we're not talking about literally peeking inside someone's head. Nope. It's about developing this kind of high-definition understanding of why people do what they do. And this whole skill is really built on three crucial pillars.
The foundation, step 1, is deep observation. See, most of us just listen to the words people say. But the real key is to also see, to notice the gestures, the facial expressions, the little shifts in posture. It's all about figuring out how someone normally acts, so you can spot it when something's different. The second pillar is, of course, understanding body language, that constant, silent conversation happening in every single interaction. And finally, it's about appreciating basic human psychology, the patterns and motivations we all share. Most people only hear, but the people who truly get it, they observe.
Now let's dive into that silent conversation, the body's language. A massive part of our communication isn't verbal at all. In fact, psychology shows us that what a person's body is doing is often way more important and honestly way more truthful than the words coming out of their mouth. And you know why? It's because our nonverbal signals are often controlled by the more primitive emotional parts of our brain, which makes them a lot harder to fake.
So let's look at a classic. Someone crosses their arms. Our first thought is probably, oh, they're being defensive or closed off. And yeah, that can be true. It's kind of a self-hug, it creates a physical barrier. But here's the thing, context is everything. Are they also leaning away from you? Are their lips all tight and pursed? Or is the room just really cold? See? It's a signal, but it's almost never the whole story by itself.
And what about eye contact? If someone's constantly looking away, yeah, it could mean they're nervous or maybe even trying to hide something. But it could also just be a sign of respect in their culture, or maybe they're just shy. And this brings us to a really crucial rule. You can never, ever judge a single signal in isolation. You've always got to look for clusters of cues, like averted eyes plus fidgeting plus a shaky voice. Now that starts to tell a much clearer story.
Okay, now for a really fascinating one that most people totally miss. We spend so much time trying to control our faces and our hands, but we almost never think about our feet. And that makes them an incredible source of what psychologists call leakage, these little unconscious signals of what we're really thinking. A person's feet will almost always point in the direction they subconsciously want to go. So if their feet are pointed at you, hey, you've got their full attention. But if they're angled toward the door, their subconscious mind is already halfway out of the conversation, no matter how polite their smile is.
Let's pull this all together. Imagine you're pitching an idea to a colleague. They're smiling, they're nodding, saying all the right things. But you notice their body is angled away, their arms are crossed tight, and their feet are pointed right back at their desk. Their words are saying, yes, this is great, but their body is practically screaming, I am not on board with this and I want to get back to my work. See? Words can be chosen carefully, but the body often tells the unfiltered truth. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit, from the whole body to the most expressive part of us, the face. And here,
We're diving into the absolutely incredible world of what are called micro-expressions.
So what is a microexpression? It's this super brief, totally involuntary flash of emotion. I mean, we're talking a fraction of a second, so fast that most of us miss them completely. The psychologist Paul Ekman did groundbreaking research on this and discovered 7 of these universal expressions: anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. And because they're involuntary, they're one of the most reliable clues to how a person is really feeling. It's like a tiny, unguarded peek into their emotional core.
Here's a perfect example. Let's say a rival at work congratulates you on getting a big promotion. They're smiling, they're saying, "Wow, I'm so happy for you." But if you're watching really closely, for just a split second, you see the corner of their lip curl up on one side, a flash of pure contempt, before that polite smile snaps right back into place. That tiny little flicker, that was the truth. It revealed that while they were trying to perform happiness, their genuine emotion was something way, way different.
All right, let's shift gears from what we see to what we hear. We've talked about the body, we've talked about the face, but our emotions are also deeply, deeply encoded in our voices. This is all about paralinguistics, the signals hidden not in what we say, but in how we say it. The pitch, the pace, the volume of our voice, it can tell a completely different story from our actual words.
Just think about one simple word. Okay. If someone says it in a bright, cheerful tone, okay, you know everything's fine. But what if their voice drops and they say it really slow and quiet? Okay. That sounds a lot more like they're disappointed or maybe just giving in. And if it's set in a cold, flat tone, okay. That often means they're trying to hide that they're angry. The word itself never changed, but the emotional meaning, it changed completely. Skilled listeners don't just hear words, they hear the music behind them.
So we've covered how to see all these signals. The next logical step is, okay, how do we move from just being a passive observer to an active participant? These are some practical techniques you can actually use to build deeper understanding and, frankly, encourage more honesty in your day-to-day conversations.
The first technique is called mirroring. Now listen up, because this is so important. Mirroring is not copying. Copying someone's every single move is, well, it's just creepy, right? Mirroring is about subtly, naturally reflecting someone's posture or their pace. If they lean in, maybe you gently lean in a few moments later. If they're speaking really softly, you can match their volume. This works because of something called mirror neurons in our brains. Basically, by mirroring someone, you're non-verbally communicating, "Hey, I'm like you, I get you." It builds this powerful subconscious feeling of trust and rapport.
Now let's think about a different situation. You're in a tough conversation. You ask a really important question, and the other person gives you a short, kind of incomplete answer. Our natural instinct is to jump in and fill that space, right? To ask another question immediately. But what if the most powerful move you can make is to do nothing at all? The most powerful response is often just silence. You see, most people are incredibly uncomfortable with it. When you just pause, hold eye contact, and wait, you create this social vacuum. And that pressure to fill the void often makes the other person start talking again, to elaborate, to justify what they said, and sometimes to reveal the very thing they were trying to hold back. Strategic silence gives the truth room to breathe. And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important point of this entire discussion. We've talked about some really powerful psychological tools here, but with great power comes the question of purpose. The goal, and I mean this, the goal is absolutely not to get an advantage over someone or to manipulate people.
So let me be really clear. These skills, if you use them to manipulate or exploit other people, will inevitably blow up in your face. Why? Because they destroy the one thing that is the hardest to build and the absolute easiest to break: trust. The true purpose of sharpening your perception isn't to control people, it's to understand them on a much deeper, more authentic level. The real power of these skills is all about connection. They lead to better communication, helping you hear what's not being said so you can respond with more empathy. They build way stronger relationships because at the heart of any great relationship is that feeling of being truly seen and understood. And they make for truly effective leadership
Because a great leader doesn't just manage a to-do list. They understand the feelings, the motivations, and the unspoken worries of their team. So the big takeaway is this. You now get that people are communicating on multiple channels all at once. Their words, that's just one stream of data. Their tone of voice, their micro-expressions, the way they hold themselves, all of that is broadcasting information too. You're no longer just listening, you're observing. You're not just hearing words anymore. You're starting to understand the feelings that are driving those words.
Because here's the thing, once you learn to see these signals, you can't unsee them. Once you really grasp that the greatest human language isn't just words but our entire behavior, every single interaction changes. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Now that you know all this, do you think you'll ever be able to look at people in quite the same way again?